This broker subsequently sold 2 pounds to a black musician who returned to New York City. The musician took some paraquat-treated joints to work one night and passed one of them to a young actor.
Are you sure this stuff is okay?
Oh, yes, man. I swear it's Colombian.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week we're talking about Season 3, Episode 19, with host Richard Dreyfuss and musical guests Jimmy Buffett and Gary Tigerman. This show originally aired on May 13th, 1978. Brad, we are coming off of one of the best episodes of all time, so I was really excited about this. Yes. Yeah, I was talking about the podcast. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like after that last episode, just give everybody a break. Like, catch you for buck next week, everybody. Goodbye.
But I was excited about this episode coming off of that. Richard Dreyfuss.
Were you?
Well, yeah.
Were you? You were?
I was, because I knew that he had just won the Oscar.
Goodbye, Girl.
Goodbye, Girl, yeah. And I was genuinely interested in what he would bring to the show. And I was excited for it because the show was riding on such a high.
Yes, as I guess he is, because youngest Oscar winner at that point in the history. It was like 30 years and change. Goodbye, Girl. I guess, like, is it wrong? Is it too far of a stretch to say that he was one of, if not the biggest movie stars at this particular point in time?
I don't know.
Because American Graffiti, 1973 is when he kind of broke out. American Graffiti, yeah. Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and this movie where he just won the Oscar for.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a big deal. Like, those are all big movies, right? I mean, money-wise, like, aren't
I guess
the Spielberg ones.
That's all true. But was he like the draw for any of those? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, Close Encounters he must have been.
Was he, or were people excited
Goodbye,
for
Girl?
the follow-up to Jaws?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Maybe Goodbye Girl. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't think so. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I think he had a good run.
He did. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So you were excited coming into this episode?
I was. Yes.
You are a Richard Dreyfuss fan? You like Richard Dreyfuss?
Oh, I don't know if I would. See, this is what I'm getting to with.
Or is this all predicated on your fandom of Gary Tigerman?
My unparalleled fandom of Gary Tigerman. Yes. No, I don't know that I'm a Richard Dreyfuss fan, but I'm also not a Richard Dreyfuss hater. Like I said, he's not the draw for me, right? Like, I love Close Encounters. Doesn't need to be Richard Dreyfuss, in my opinion. I think he's fine in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's good. Let me not discount him, but he's not like, oh, I need to see Richard Dreyfuss. I need to see Richard Dreyfuss's entire filmography to feel good about myself. Does that make sense?
No, but not the point.
But he comes on this week. He is promoting his next film.
Sort of, yeah.
I mean, he throws it out at the end.
He throws it out. Yeah. But I think it's more of a, he's hot, just won the Oscar. He's young. Let's get him on. Yeah.
And they do. And to say this episode was uneven.
Not good?
I was going to say uneven. But
not good? Okay.
Yeah. Not, especially following last week's just...
Well, I mean, it's, you don't want to say that because you just can't follow it, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was 3 weeks ago in real time in 1978, but for us, it was last week. So it's super fresh in our minds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it is a much different episode than that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Well, should we just get into it?
Let's.
All right. So the cold open starts with John and Gilda as two Mexican farmers harvesting marijuana, and they are doused with paraquat.
Paraquat.
Have you done any research on paraquat? You know what paraquat is?
I do now, yes.
Yeah.
Because my first note was, I feel like I should know what paraquat is.
That was exactly my immediate reaction as well. Yes.
So yes, sir, to answer your question, I have. Thank you.
Okay. If anyone doesn't know, it was an herbicide that the Mexican and U.S. governments both decided to douse marijuana fields with in order to kill the plants. But much like this sketch, the farmers were just harvesting it anyway and then selling it, and people were dying from smoking marijuana laced with paraquat.
Were they actually dying? They were
Yeah.
actually dying from it?
Yeah.
I missed that part in the research.
You only skimmed the first paragraph?
Pretty much, yeah.
So
I'm going to apologize right off the bat. I may not have dug as deep as I should have on a lot of this episode. I'm sorry.
well, just let's set it out there. I don't know how deep you need to go on a lot of this episode. So this beginning part with John and Gilda, really,
Yes.
it just turns into another reason for John to hit Gilda 3 times.
That's my second. I have the exact note. Another reason for John to slap Gilda.
Just by the way, I forgot to open your notes. I have not looked at your notes yet.
Great, because you're 2 for 2 so far.
Yeah.
I can only hope your third note is what in the hell is going on?
Yeah, I did not write that down, but I stopped writing because I was trying to figure this out.
Right. Okay.
Dan does a voiceover with some map explaining then how the marijuana is then transported to the
that's
U.S.
right. Because it's like a plane, right, from Mexico to Illinois or something, and then a train, and then a truck, and then a van to get it to right.
And it all goes to a black musician in the South, maybe Atlanta, I don't know, who goes to New York, and then we go and the black musician gives it to a young actor, and then we cut to Howard Johnson. Is that Howard Johnson?
No, it's Bob Crenshaw, guitar player.
Bob Crenshaw giving Bill
Howard Johnson. We just saw Howard Johnson playing the tube. Oh my God, we have to edit this part out.
Yeah, we do.
This
I wrote in my notes, who is this? And then I forgot to look.
Only slightly worse if you could have asked if it was Steve Jordan.
I was pretty sure it was Howard Shore.
You know, going into this episode, I was worried it was going to suck, but so far we are off on a killer start. And I can't wait to see where this goes.
So he gives Bill a joint, and Bill takes a number of hits off of the joint and then says live from New York. That's our cold open.
I mean, Bill, of course, is hilarious. Let's give him credit. In his 10 seconds he's on screen, he is pretty funny.
He is. I didn't really think much else in this was funny.
No, it's funny you mentioned the board and the trip, because I thought it took a long trip to not really get anywhere at the end.
Yeah.
Am I off? Am I off by saying this is the weakest cold open we've had all season?
Oh, it's up there. Yeah.
Because they've been starting things off pretty good, whether they're meta or actual sketches or, the political stuff. So I feel like they've actually been doing overall a pretty good job on the cold opens. And this kind of felt like maybe a season 1-2 throwaway where you're just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
From there, we go to Richard Dreyfuss's monologue, where he comes out.
Well, we should say opening credits, and then we're going to see Father Guido Sarducci.
Yeah, that was exciting. And I knew that he was going to come out on crutches because I listened to our episode a few weeks ago where you mentioned.
You know what I didn't know watching the opening credits?
What's that?
Who in the hell Gary Tigerman was.
Yeah. If you do remember last week, I did note that we were going to have to do some research on Gary Tigerman. So I can't wait till we can talk about our Gary Tigerman research later. But let's hold on to that.
Let's
talk about the monologue where Richard Dreyfuss comes out in a Shakespearean costume holding an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on to explain his getup is because a certain not ready for primetime player told him that Richard Burton deserved the Oscar, not him.
At which point I was so hoping Bill Murray was going to come out and do his Richard Burton impression, which he does not.
He does not. Although he mentions Richard Burton later again.
Yes.
Yeah. And as Richard Dreyfuss is explaining the not ready for primetime player, he lets it come out that it was John that he was arguing with. And he then goes on to perform a scene from Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1, the famous To Be or Not to Be. Instead of holding a skull, he's holding his Oscar. And then when there's a pause, John comes up on stage, and then it's a whole back and forth between Richard and John because John thought he forgot his line.
Right. Yeah. The pause is, we should say, Dreyfuss takes a pause. You hear a voice from the audience interrupting the whole routine.
Right.
And Richard's like, what? And then, John comes up.
Yeah. And John argues with him and calls him Mr. New Hollywood Establishment.
Not a fan.
No. And it all builds up to a but no.
It does. It does.
See, now, by your tone, it sounds like you did not enjoy that, which is funny because in my notes, I wrote, this feels forced. I wonder if Brad liked it.
I actually did not like it.
Okay.
It felt, full disclosure here, I do not like Richard Dreyfuss at all. Quite possibly more than I dislike Charles Grodin. So there's that going into it. That being said, I did not like it because it felt, to me, too much of John upstaging the host. Even if it's a host I don't really like, it felt like it was too much of him upstaging.
Agreed.
This host trying to have his moment.
Agreed.
I don't think the but no was that forced. You could see it coming and it kind of worked. It did work in theory, like creatively, but just overall, like theme, I didn't like this theme of upstaging the host to start the show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was interesting the way that they, throughout the show, or at least one more time later, kind of disparaged Richard Dreyfuss's award. And the way they handled it was just kind of weird, in my opinion.
Yeah, and John tries pushing his buttons and pokes at him. I did like when he came on. He talks about how he thought Richard Burton should have won. When he did Hamlet, he was great. He didn't have any pauses.
Yeah.
Because Dreyfuss is trying to explain acting to John, a TV actor, and what pauses and inflections and stuff were. And I did like that one line about Richard Burton not needing pauses.
Yeah, I agree. And it did seem like Richard Dreyfuss was enjoying John's little rant. He was smiling, laughing at it.
He was. Bill Murray has told a story, and it's interesting, where he talks about John would do these things where he would basically fuck with the host, especially if they were hosts who were considered great actors and of their level, so to speak. Like not a Roger Crawford, but like on their...
Right. Their peers. Yeah.
And so he specifically points out this episode with Richard Dreyfuss where he says John would come to rehearsals like he was sick or stumbling through, and he was giving like literally like 30%, and the host would be worried, like, how are we going to do this show? Like John can't even walk. And then, all of a sudden the live show would turn up and John would like turn on him, come on 100% full John, and like everything would be perfect. And he references the Dreyfuss episode because he talks about how John really hated Dreyfuss's performance in The Goodbye Girl, which we'll see an impression of that later. So just interesting to read that and then see this interaction between the two of them to start the show. And to your point, Dreyfuss kind of digging it, enjoying it. And maybe it's because they had gone through this a few times and it wasn't really clicking. And now John is at 10,
right,
and is really delivering. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But I agree with you. I didn't really enjoy a cast member upstaging the host during the monologue. We've seen a lot of really quick monologues too. Like Michael Sarrazin's wasn't funny and they just got out of it and moved on. And this one felt long for what it was and kind of felt unnecessary the way they took it. But
yeah,
I don't know. I was looking for Richard Dreyfuss to perform and show his comedic chops, which he tries to do in...
New question.
Uh-oh.
Does he have comedic chops?
Well, that's a question for the end of the show.
That's a legit question.
Yes.
What comedic chops are you expecting him to bring? Isn't he like a dramatic actor?
I thought he was hilarious in Jaws.
In Jaws?
Yeah.
My favorite Richard Dreyfuss thing ever is like from the 90s when they did an impression of him auditioning for Jaws. And he's like, I was Richard Dreyfuss. I was in Jaws, or whatever. I forget who does it, but it's like someone doing a Dreyfuss impression in the 90s for one of those, parade a bunch of impressions to audition for some other movie.
Uh-huh.
I'm Richard Dreyfuss. I was in Jaws. It's like my favorite thing of Richard Dreyfuss. I hate Richard Dreyfuss. I'm sorry.
Do you hate What About Bob?
I don't enjoy it as much because of him.
Oh, that's disappointing.
But I do enjoy it more because Bill Murray was such an asshole to him. So it's weird. I have a conflicting...
Yes.
It's a conflicting movie for me.
Oh, boy. Well, he's trying to show his comedic chops in the next sketch, which starts out with him in his apartment building something, and you don't really know what it is. It's obviously a take on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And in the background, the TV's on, and you hear Bill doing his Walter Cronkite the entire time, which was brilliant.
Yeah, it was really good. Really good. I thought it was a radio at first because you hear it.
Right.
And then they finally pan over, and then you see it's actually TV. So he actually did it on video to be on the TV. Yes, it was a great little addition.
Agreed. Yeah, that was awesome. And then you see that Dreyfuss is building, like in Close Encounters, he's building a model, and he doesn't know what it is. And this one is shaped like a cone. And then there's a commercial for Beldar's driving school. And he realizes it's Beldar, and that's the shape that he's been creating. And he ends up going to the Conehead's house, and we have Cone Encounters of the Third Kind.
Go on.
I'm not going to lie. The highlight of this sketch for me, it turns out, was Bill as Walter Cronkite on the TV. So
it might have been.
Yeah. We go to the Conehead's house. We see the three of them talking. Beldar says that the High Master is coming, and Richard Dreyfuss comes and finds them. And then John comes as the High Master. And then, did you notice? I'm sure you did. All of a sudden, after John comes, they're shining this bright light in, and then everything is so soft.
It's like a haze. They put a haze in.
Yeah. That just totally distracted me. Yeah.
Didn't distract me, but it's very noticeable. Yes.
Yeah. So we see John again as the High Master. He again makes reference to Lorraine. And the whole thing is that, the Coneheads haven't done what they were supposed to for the High Master of building this fuel station. And then they turn it into Richard Dreyfuss as the person. So he's going with them to Remulac.
He's going to be the supreme refueling attendant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's not ready. That was their excuses. They needed to find an attendant, and this was going to be the guy. And then Dreyfuss walks out with John and Garrett, and he's going to go become this. Yeah, he's going to go with the aliens.
Back to Remulac. Why did Richard Dreyfuss start talking in that weird manner? Did you notice?
He tried doing the Conehead bit. Like he was trying to talk like a Conehead.
I guess, but why? Like I didn't understand why his character would do that.
Well, I have to be honest here. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
I think I've seen this movie once, and I never liked it. Probably because of Richard Dreyfuss. But I had assumed, like I know in the movie, I thought he wanted to go with the aliens.
Yes, that is correct.
So I thought him talking like the Coneheads was kind of a play on that. But no, that's not from the movie?
No.
Okay, I don't know. I thought it was funny that Beldar had a commercial.
Right? That was
like they're not hiding. Well, I guess he was on Family Feud, but like they're not hiding. Like here's Beldar doing a commercial for a driving school. That I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
There's a bit when the High Master shows up and they go out to a model of the house, a model of the ship coming down. It's always fun when they do the models. Like it's just so cheap, and
that model got funny. A lot of reaction from the audience. A lot of applause for that model.
Of course. And then I mean, I gotta say it. How great is Jane? She's still good. Like she's still holding her own with Dan with all the dialogue and the acting and the accent. It's like she's still really good in these Conehead sketches.
I feel like all three of them are. Like Jane, Lorraine, and Dan are all great.
Yeah. But it is long. Like as you were going through the whole thing, I even had the note where he's there talking. By the time John shows up, by the way, John, who was in the monologue, that's a pretty quick change to put a cone on his head. And it looked good.
Yeah.
But by the time...
He was also in the open. That's all John so far.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But by the time he shows up, I was like, this is starting to feel really long.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, there's not much to it. I agree. It makes sense to do. I mean, again, it's a missed opportunity with Close Encounters of the Third Kind that you wouldn't do something. So I get it. And it makes sense to start the show with it. And I will give Richard Dreyfuss credit for parroting his movie. Like we still haven't seen that a lot in this era of SNL, of hosts coming on and making fun of whatever TV show or movie they might be in. Sometimes they'll parody themselves as a celebrity.
Yeah.
But they don't really make fun of their own projects. So I did like the fact that he was willing to go along with a Close Encounters sketch.
Yeah, sure. When he started talking like the Coneheads, he wanted to be a Conehead. Like he wanted to play a Conehead.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I see.
I just mean like Richard Dreyfuss, not the character, but
Right. Richard Dreyfuss for real life.
yeah. Well,
You know what else really pissed me off about this sketch?
no.
At the end of the sketch, when they show the prop guys operating the model of the spaceship leaving away,
Yeah.
they weren't even smoking cigars this time.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And I was kind of sad. I agree with you.
It's like everybody's half-assing it tonight.
I'll just leave in the half-affing because then it'll show that we're half-affing too.
My God.
So Richard Dreyfuss then comes on and introduces Jimmy Buffett. But as he's about to introduce Jimmy Buffett, we hear the Jaws theme in the background. And he's like, "You hear
I
that?
like that.
You hear
That
that?"
was fun.
Yeah,
It was a fun little thing.
But he then introduces Jimmy Buffett, who comes on to sing "Son of a Sailor."
Son of a sailor.
It's son of a sailor.
Son of a sailor. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not up on my Jimmy Buffett, really.
Well, you're not a parrot head. That's why.
No, I am not.
Not that I am either, but
He's sitting there with a broken leg, which Richard Dreyfuss mentioned in his intro. And he sings the
where
song.
is he sitting?
Is he sitting? I don't know what he's sitting. Oh.
He's sitting on Stephen Bishop's set.
Yes.
It's the beach set with boat.
I wrote that.
I can't believe they kept all that.
So my question was, and I didn't know, and I didn't look into research. I'm going to ask you this. My immediate thought when I saw this was, and he mentioned his broken leg, was like, was this set built for Jimmy Buffett 3 weeks ago and they had to hold it because he broke his leg?
You know, I couldn't find it. I thought too somewhere I remember hearing Jimmy Buffett was supposed to be on the show in the past.
Yeah.
I can't remember when it was, but the broken leg was not the reason he wasn't on because he just broke the leg. I mean, they weren't joking when they said it literally days ago. What day was this episode?
May 13th. Yeah.
May 13th. He broke his leg like 2 weeks ago, May 1st.
Yeah.
He had been touring in the spring, I think with the Eagles. And so he was touring for a couple of months and he was home and he broke his ankle playing baseball.
Oh.
So the broken ankle is a relatively, put it this way, after the Stephen Bishop performance.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought maybe that's why they had the beach set, but
I'm amazed they kept it this long, he said.
it is funny. How did you like this performance?
It was okay. I didn't know the song. I only know really, Jimmy Buffett's greatest hits.
Yeah.
To which I then have to ask, why did he not play any of his big hits, especially if they're only giving him one song? This was the title track of his album that came out a couple months ago, Son of a Sailor. But the first single off that album was Cheeseburger in Paradise. So that had to have been a big song at the time at this point in May. Why not play that? Or why not play Margaritaville from your last album, which was a top 10 hit?
Yeah.
If you're only getting one song, I feel like one of those two might have been a better one.
Probably.
But I mean, as far as the song itself, like it wasn't bad. Like I said, I didn't know it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching a young Jimmy Buffett. I feel like in my mind, I always remember like 90s and on Jimmy Buffett. So it was nice to see a young Jimmy Buffett kind of in his prime.
Yeah. Big mustache.
Yeah.
A lot of hair. It was fine.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very, very fine.
Well, let's hold on to very fine, because I don't think you can go any better than that for the next sketch, which is the television show Sex Test, hosted by
Please be Jane. Please be
Richard
Jane. Please
Dreyfuss.
Be Jane. Not Jane.
Not Jane. No, I had the same thought.
Damn it.
So this was a confusing premise to me. It was a sex education show.
Yes.
Where Richard Dreyfuss would ask questions and then put, multiple choice up on the screen and then say what the correct answer was. And then they would go to an expert who would give more detailed answers. So Lorraine came on as a sex therapist. Bill came on as an advisor to Penthouse. Then Gilda came on as a primate scientist. And Garrett came on as some sort of doctor. And each of them talked about different sex questions that he had asked.
Sorry. I'm just looking above me because I'm waiting for them to drop the cow on me.
Oh, for those of you fortunately listening to this and not watching us, Brad has been looking up through all of my discussion, and I genuinely thought you had like a leaky ceiling or something.
Why do I hate this episode?
I don't know. We're Very early into this episode.
I know. And I at this point in the show asked myself, why do I hate this episode? And I think it's because I really hate Richard Dreyfuss.
Man.
Hatred for Dreyfuss aside.
Yeah.
Is he really the best person to do this sketch solo to camera? Is he like shouting the whole time?
I maybe. I
like,
found
I felt like
him
he was just shouting the lines to the camera.
Yeah, maybe.
I just kept thinking like he's no Buck Henry. Buck Henry could pull this off as a host.
Yes.
But like as a host, he is not, this is just not good for him.
Well, also, I mean, Buck Henry's an extreme example, right? Because you have Horny Buck. So if you have a television show called Sex Test with Horny Buck, that totally fits his.
I was thinking more of like the bit he did with the phones where he manned the 10 phones all at once.
Yes.
Like again, host, solo to camera. He's great. Anyway.
Yeah.
Luckily the cast is only like 7 deep, so they can't go that far.
Well, in my opinion, the cast didn't really bring anything to this either in their parts.
No, but they did like, what, 5 of them?
They did 4, yeah.
4?
It felt like more, but yeah.
I thought Garrett was okay. I liked Garrett in this.
Yeah, they were all okay. There was nothing that was like a standout. There was, I think I actually thought Lorraine was the best of all of them, but whatever. Maybe it was because she was first.
It was after, by the time they got to Garrett, I did drop the fucking cow. I just like, what in the Sam hell was that? I just leave it like, it's a show. It's not a show. The multiple, I don't know. Then they started to, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't give up hope though, because Update was coming up and I was like, come on, Jane, turn things around. You can do it.
Yeah. So we get Update next, and it starts with Jane to camera.
Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to respond to some mail that we've received. Many of you have explained at times that I act in less than a professional manner. You say I become bitchy and lose my cool, hollering at Emily Latella or John Belushi or Roseanne Rosanna. You're probably right. I do have some things that have been bothering lately. My mother has Legionnaire's disease, but still there's no reason for letting my personal life interfere with my job as a responsible journalist. And I apologize. Never again will you see me lose my dignity by overreacting to any of my fellow correspondents, no matter how feeble they may be. That's a promise.
It's a good start.
It is a good start. And immediately it goes to Dan, who's like, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I just thought you were going through menopause.
Joke did not land.
It didn't, but
no,
not with the audience, but with Jane's reaction. I was like, oh, they're just this is all going to be poking right at Jane all night. And eventually it is. So some of their jokes in the beginning were very like tied to 1978, some like McDonald's, AMC's. And then Dan had another metric conversion joke, this time about money. And then we get Bill Murray, who comes on to recap his Oscar picks. And he mentions that he did not do well. And he's going to revisit that. And so he hadn't seen Goodbye Girl. So he had Warner Brothers send over some clips of Goodbye Girl, for which Richard Dreyfuss just won the Best Actor Oscar.
But prior to that, didn't he say he thought it should have went to Richard Burton as well? This is where they mentioned Richard Burton, right?
Yes. Oh, right.
Because he's like, Richard Burton should have won. From what I understand, was a superb performance.
Yes. He also, in a call forward to Scrooge, calls him Lumpy.
I noticed that as well, too. Yeah.
So then he goes on to show clips of Goodbye Girl. And we then see pre-tapes of John doing his Richard Dreyfuss impression of scenes from Goodbye Girl with Gilda.
He's pretty good.
He's very good.
He's very good.
Yes.
I have watched Goodbye Girl like in the last year or so. So like those scenes are kind of in my head and they're really good. He does do a really great job.
Yeah. That scene where he just keeps turning his head for reaction is hilarious.
The one in the bathroom where he's picking off the stuff off the shower rod was pretty spot on. I don't like this. I don't like this. Very, very, very good.
But again, I think this is an interesting choice by the show to kind of go after your host who just won an Oscar to belittle his Oscar win again.
Yeah. I mean, it plays better here than the monologue, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah. It's interesting.
And to me, that kind of signals Richard Dreyfuss's showing that he has a sense of humor in that he's going for all of this stuff. I don't know. That's just kind of how it feels to me. No? That doesn't endear him to you?
No, okay.
Think of it this way, Brad. You don't like it when I make fun of you because you have no sense of humor.
I was in Jaws.
So as Bill's wrapping up his segment, he then grabs Jane and knocks her on the head like a noogie and is like, pass this down to Danny. And she just feels that you can tell she's tensing up more on camera.
She doesn't know what to do.
No, she does not know what to do. It goes to Dan for a couple of jokes, and then it comes back to Rosanna Dana talking about UFOs. And typical Rosanna Dana, she starts going off the trail, and camera pulls back, and it's a 2-shot on her and Jane. And you see Jane getting more and more tense. And I thought Jane was excellent in this. She doesn't say anything, but just her body language, you can tell what she's doing.
She was very good for a very good portion of this sketch or this bit.
Yeah. And eventually Roseanne just starts like poking at her and prodding her and telling her like she has something under her eye. And eventually Jane finally gets fed up and rips her blouse open.
Right, because she asks about the size of her breasts.
Right, right.
She's like, are they both the same size? Your things, are they both the same size? And then she pulls the shirt off and says, take a look for yourself, which that's the part of it I didn't like. Like I said, I thought she was so good for so long in this bit. I thought up till that point she was great, but I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't like that.
You didn't like the break?
Ending. I didn't.
No.
But I did like the end where Jane's like so frazzled and frustrated, she can't say anything.
Yeah.
So Rosanna Dana does the sign off.
Yeah.
I did like that. That made me laugh. That was funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I liked her break, because she broke and it was immediate and it was harsh. And then she immediately pulled back from it.
Yeah.
Then she conveyed this like, oh my God, what did I do? I lost my cool. I said I wasn't going to, she doesn't say any of this, but you can just see it in her. And Roseanne and Dan, like it cuts to Dan at one point and it's like, and no one knows what to do. And Roseanne then closes out Weekend Update, which I thought worked really well.
The sign off by her was good. Yeah. That was the one thing. Other than that, it was kind of a rough Weekend Update, I thought.
Yeah. I didn't think there were any home runs. I enjoyed John's impression of Dreyfuss. And I thought that was a good, pick me up in the middle there. After Update, we get a sketch that I believe you said was originally from last week's show and got pushed.
They had written it the week prior. Yeah, they were thinking about doing it with Steve and got pushed.
We get Nick the Lounge Singer. This time he's Nick Springs, although at one point he does refer to himself as Nick Winter and quickly changes. And this is a typical Nick the Lounge Singer sketch. He's there with Paul. He's in his beautiful pink tuxedo in a pink room, which I just found to be very funny for some reason.
The honeymoon, because he's at the Poconos for the honeymoon.
The honeymoon
hotel.
He's in the honeymoon room, I think is what Paul's piano says. He talks to John and Gilda, who are playing husband and wife. It's all the same
old characters.
Yeah.
Exactly. John and Gilda are a couple. Lorraine is a woman who's there with somebody, not her husband, because he's injured or sick or something.
Yep. Dan
Jimmy Joe Red's guy shows up with a dead animal from somewhere. It's all the same. It's all the same.
It is. But it was fun. I mean, they really went in on the Univox this time, the little box that.
Yeah, which I did not like. They kept trying to like hit that joke. And I think that's something Tom Davis, when he writes about it in his book, said that's something Bill wanted. He really wanted to bring this drum machine box thing in. And I don't know. I didn't like it.
I didn't mind it, except at one point they had a tight shot on it that I was like, why are we doing this? Like the fact that it's there and he keeps adjusting it and playing with it, whatever. To me, it kind of made sense for the character, but
right.
I didn't know why we needed to see a tight shot. But yeah, it was fine. It was a fine Nick the Lounge Singer, nothing crazy.
Lorraine was good. Lorraine's always great. I do love her in this character as the woman who's there, like, cause mumbles her name 3 times till she says it out loud, and he asks where her husband is. She's always really good. You know who's not good in this sketch? I'll give you one guess.
I think you're going to say Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. Remember when Robert Klein was in the sketch? How great Robert Klein was and his little role they made up for him?
Yeah.
This is like the anti-Robert Klein. Dreyfuss is like, he plays Nick's manager and he's the one sitting with Lorraine.
Right.
As much as I liked Robert Klein, I disliked Richard Dreyfuss.
I can't defend Richard Dreyfuss in this sketch.
Whatever.
Whatever. Well, we see Lorraine and Richard Dreyfuss again in the next sketch as a couple coming home from a dinner that he did not enjoy because he doesn't know what pimentos are or where they come from, which whatever. And then they just proceed to have an argument about their pet peeves with one another and what bothers them. Is this a Marilyn Suzanne Miller piece?
Yeah, I was thinking it, and then I went back to double check, and it is a Marilyn piece.
I assumed, and like a lot of Marilyn's other pieces, it's, a slice of life, real, a couple having an interaction and not necessarily a warm interaction between the two of them. This one did not hit for me like many of the others have.
No, it was too similar to the Bill Murray Lorraine one we just saw a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
It actually even feels like the same exact set they used for that
yes,
Bill Lorraine.
It really does.
Which was way better.
Yes.
You know why? Richard Dreyfuss. But no, in all seriousness, you know what felt weird? It's why I kind of wasn't sure at first if it was a Marilyn Suzanne Miller piece. It's almost trying too hard to be funny. Do you know what I mean? Like there feels like there's more jokey lines in this sketch than are normally in hers. And that's why I wasn't sure it was a Marilyn piece.
Right.
Because it's like they purposely try to make you laugh at what they're saying and what they're doing, which just is a little bit different or not nearly as much as she normally does.
But is it them or is it Richard Dreyfuss? Because I didn't really get that from Lorraine. Like Lorraine.
Oh, I'm not going to blame Dreyfuss for this. No, I don't think so.
All right. That's very good of you to be fair.
Thanks. It's just odd. Yeah. It's just odd that that's the one we see right after the Bill and Lorraine. And there's just so much comparison to it.
Yeah. Very similar. Even down to using Lorraine for both of them.
And again, I think the same set.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely didn't work for me like the others. I wasn't really into the performances or the writing on this one. But the performances in the next sketch I thought were fabulous. We have the David Susskind show hosted by Bill as David Susskind. And it is the Mother's Day show. So each of his guests are accompanied by their mothers. His guests are Henry Kissinger, played by John, whose mother is played by Lorraine. Tom Snyder, played by Dan, his mother is Jane. And Leon Spinks, played by Garrett, and his mother is Gilda. And so it's just a panel discussion with all of them. And he asks each of them questions, and then they would answer and their mothers would answer. And it was, Lorraine, Jane, and Gilda doing their impressions of John's Kissinger, Dan's Tom Snyder, and Garrett's Leon Spinks. And I thought the women all did an excellent job here.
Yes. Kind of don't know how to address Gilda playing Garrett's mother. I'm just going to leave that one to the side.
I think she did a good job with it. I mean,
the jokes were funny at the end where they talked about how the other children dealt with this being your favorite child. And she's like, no, brothers always love Leon. They're always the first one. I'll bail him out of jail. It was a good line.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest. Fucking Jane steals the show.
How great is Jane in this sketch?
I mean, she is amazing.
And last but certainly not least, Mom and Tom Snyder. Tom, is there anything special that you'd like to say to your mother on this Mother's Day?
Oh, well, before I address any comments to my dear mother, David, I'd just like to say at the outset that you do a mighty fine job on the talk show business. What the heck? I'm in the same business. I might as well tell you.
Excuse me, Tommy, before you continue, I'd just like to tell David exactly what you were going to tell him. I know this because I'm your mother, and mothers always know. Tommy says he admires you, and as a matter of fact, even though you're rivals in a tough competitive business, I think it's no big secret he's still a big fan of yours, and so am I, and I'm his mother.
This is the best bit. I'm calling it now.
I agree.
Jane as Tom Snyder's mother is amazing.
She's good.
So good.
I don't want to discount Lorraine because when Lorraine went first and she played Henry Kissinger's mother, and I was like, wow, great job, Lorraine. That was awesome.
It's a different performance.
Yes.
It's a different character. It's like so subdued. It's completely different ends of the spectrum. But you're right. Lorraine is very good as well.
Yeah. And then they knew it because they went from Lorraine and then they went to the other side of the panel of the semicircle and did Leon Spinks and Gilda. And then they went to Dan and Jane as Tom Snyder and his mom. And that was brilliant. She was excellent.
And Bill was good too, I gotta say. We're talking, but Bill as Susskind was also very, very good.
Yes.
This is a rare sketch with the whole cast.
It's the whole
just
cast.
the cast.
I was just going to say that.
That's what I really liked about it. It was just, I honestly can't remember the last time we had just the 7 cast members. And that's it. No hosts, no extras, nobody else.
Yeah.
And for that, I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, it just showcased the cast as themselves, just them. Really great.
It was excellent.
That was my favorite. That and Jane's performance. My favorite things about this sketch.
I thought Jane was great. I thought this was a lot of fun.
It was. You could just tell. Yeah. Fun is a great word for this sketch.
Yeah.
You know, it's not fun, Gary.
I was going for a segue and I was trying not to say that, but let's follow. Go on. I'll bite.
Happy to.
What's not fun, Brad?
Whoever this next dude is, I still don't know who he is.
So Richard Dreyfuss is still taking his hosting duties seriously, and he comes on to introduce an old friend of his, he says. And again, we hear the Jaws music, and he walks over to the door and opens it, and there's nothing there.
Which I thought was actually a very good bit. The fact that, one, they brought it like a runner back. They brought the Jaws thing back, the land shark bit. But then he actually went far enough to go to a door and open it to check. Was really good.
Yeah, that was really good. And he introduces his old friend, Gary Tigerman, who comes on to sing his song. What's his song called?
White Oxycan Moon?
All right.
Something of that nature.
So it's just this guy playing his acoustic guitar on it looked like a dining room chair. Did you see the chair he was sitting on?
Sure. It was very Leon Redbone. It's a dude in a chair with a guitar.
He is
sitting under a spotlight.
Leon Redbone.
No,
you
he
take
is
that
not.
back.
He is not. We're going to talk about Leon Redbone again. Don't worry, not the last reference this episode. Listen, I don't know who this guy is or was. I think he was legitimately a friend of Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
He had like the song. I'm not. Yes. Anyway, but I don't know. He was like an actor and a songwriter, and then he's an author. He became an author. So he wrote a book in like the 2000s called The Orion Protocol, which was optioned by Richard Dreyfuss's production company.
That makes sense.
And I think he's got a song. You mentioned how Dreyfuss is promoting some movie, like the movie he mentions during the Good Nights that he produced.
Yeah.
I think there's a Gary Tigerman song in that movie. So there's some type of connection between the two of them, but I don't know. But as far as the song itself, it was fine. You know what? It felt it's very mid-70s singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Folk music.
Folky. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like it reminded me like of so many movie theme songs from like 1968 to 1972. That's what I kept thinking. I'm like, what movie is this on the soundtrack to?
Oh, that's fair.
But it's decent. Like, again, for all of that being said, like it is a decent performance for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. He does a fine job. Still don't know who he is, but it's a fine job.
Yeah. Again, not the world's biggest parrot head, but not sure this warranted not giving Jimmy Buffett 2 tunes.
Well, I mean, this is clearly a case of the host says, I want my guy on the show.
That's what I'm saying. He has to be very popular. He just won the Oscar. He's 30s. He's young. He's hot.
Right.
Oh, you want me on Saturday Night Live? Sure. Book this dude.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, you're totally right.
Well, we get Richard Dreyfuss again, who comes on. And
I mean, you are correct. He is taking his hosting duties very seriously. I will not knock him for that.
Yes, he is. And I thought we were going to get another Jaws reference or Land Shark reference. But he introduces Father Guido Sarducci, who I believe he calls his like soul
spiritual advisor.
Spiritual advisor. Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and we get our first appearance of Don Novello as Father Guido Sarducci.
You know, most of the time we don't like to tell people new stuff, you know, because they can't change, you know. Like we've known for years and years about Jesus' younger brother. He had a younger brother. Billy was his name. Billy Christ. Actually, he's a step-brother, you know, step-brother. And we got the proof, too. We got this proof because we got like paintings, you know, and it shows Jesus walking out of the water. And then next to him, you can see like there's a leaf in the water. You think it's a leaf. You look really close, you can see it's like at the top of a snorkel. was a Billy down in there, and his brother, was stepping at him, on his shoulders, he had the snorkel, and I don't mean to make fun. I mean, Jesus, he was the greatest man to ever live. But, he couldn't walk on the water, come on. Grow up.
I thought he immediately looked a little nervous out there to me. It looked like when he was smoking his cigarette, it just looked like it was nervous and really quick puffs of the cigarette. But this becomes a character that we see a lot of moving forward.
Oh, yeah. He'll do this almost 20 times in the next 2 seasons and almost 40 times throughout the run of the show. He'll come back and host his fun fact. Don Novello is the very first person to host SNL as a fictional character when he comes back to host in season 9.
There you go.
I refuse to discredit Don Novello and this character by giving the rundown on this horrible episode. So we'll just say, yes, Father Guido Sarducci, Don Novello's character. He'd been doing him since the early 70s and was actually on TV prior to this on the Smothers Brothers. So he's, done him before and done him on TV before. But it's funny, you mentioned, I just thought of it when you mentioned him seeing nervous or whatever. I wonder if they threw this in at the last minute, for a time thing. Maybe they were short because why do you throw him out on crutches? There's no, there's no need to him to do a stand-up routine if he can't actually stand. And obviously that was all made up, the crutch routine, which I did find funny. They talks about getting hit by a nun while she's on a Vespa.
That's, yes, in Rome. Yeah.
But like I said, yeah, it went a little long. I did get lost at the end, but it was fun. It was fun to see. It was fun to see the very first one.
It was. Yeah. I'm excited to see more of him until I get tired of him.
Yeah.
Well, we're wrapping up
That's our show. Good night. Thank you.
Oh, not yet. I don't think I knew how much you disliked Richard Dreyfuss, although I do remember you telling me this before. So when Richard Dreyfuss, the camera comes back, and I was thinking, oh, we're close to Good Nights. The show's over. Is this Good Nights? And it's Richard Dreyfuss.
Damn it. No, it's
down. And he starts with,
I'm well aware what he
sang in public before.
I hate this episode. I hate this episode.
Oh, knowing that the host now is going to sing a song, and he is clearly not a singer because he's never sang in public
clearly
before. And he's going to sing a tune written by his dear friend Gary Tigerman.
Why can't the guy who wrote it sing it?
Well, he starts singing. The camera eventually pulls back, and we see that he's sitting on top of a piano that Paul Schaefer is playing.
Don't try to save this bit with Paul Schaefer being in it. I see what you're trying to do.
And yeah, he sings.
Friend of the pod, Paul Schaefer.
That's right. He sings I Want to Be Seduced, sitting on top of this piano. And
I can only hope they drop a cow on this bastard.
Yeah, they do not.
No, they don't.
No. This was not great, not going to lie. This was not a good way to end any show.
No. But this, like I said, I think the song is in that movie, The Big Fix. But, and you know who covered this song? As we mentioned earlier.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Leon Redbone.
Oh, really?
God, I wish he would have sung this song instead.
Yeah, I could.
How great would that have been?
That would
bring
be
him
great.
out instead. Yeah. Instead of this ham and egger.
Oh,
God damn it.
But that is actually it. That's our show. We come back for Good Nights. He's still sitting on top of the piano. We hear the Jaws music, and the shark head comes up and pulls him off of the piano. That's it. Those are the Good Nights.
Everybody comes out. Jimmy Buffett and Don Novello share crutches stories together. Poor bastards are trying to hobble up on the home base. Some great t-shirt game happening, though, I got to say.
Yeah.
Dan walks out. He's got a shirt, Don't Buy Books by Crooks.
Yeah.
And John's got a Hunter S. Thompson Gonzo shirt on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. John gives Richard Dreyfuss a big hug. They make a big show of it.
Made amends for all the tomfoolery John must have put him through during the week.
Uh-huh.
Ribbing, if you will.
Oh, I will.
I shall.
Well, Brad, you just said you hated this episode.
I did not like this episode. And I swear to you, I came into it with an open mind. I wasn't like you where I was excited or looking forward to it. But yes, I don't like Richard Dreyfuss, but I did come in with an open mind. I'm like, I want to see it. The last episode was great. They're on a roll. Where are they going to go? I was excited to watch it, and I just feel like it missed on practically everything.
Does this fall below Jill Clayburgh for you this season?
Oof, I don't know.
Again, this is interesting to me because throughout this season, you've been so high on season 3. I have not been nearly as high as you have on this, but I feel like you are. I didn't love this episode by any stretch, but I did not hate it the way you seem to have hated it.
I feel like I do. I feel like I dislike this more than Jill Clayburgh. Maybe because I was expecting, either maybe I'm expecting more because of the host for all this, because, you know, a name and maybe a bigger talent than Jill Clayburgh. So maybe I'm hoping he delivers more.
Right.
I feel like they gave him some better opportunities to be better. Like the Marilyn Suzanne Miller piece.
Right.
Coneheads.
Sex test.
I almost can't blame him. I honestly think he's just the wrong person for that. That had to be a holdover from somebody because there's no reason he should have done that.
No.
I just feel like that's just poor host placement. I mean, I know there's no way to live up to the last episode, but still. And I know you said they had time off, you know, since then, but I don't know. Maybe it's just end of the season fatigue. I mean, it's still a long season, even with a couple weeks off. Maybe it's just, you know, although I feel like I use it as a crutch too many times, but you have Buck coming up next week. So are you saving some things for Buck maybe?
And it's the season finale.
Season finale, Buck's coming back.
Right. I don't know.
Or maybe Richard Dreyfuss is just such a pain in the ass. He didn't like any of the funny sketches they wrote.
That actually
also an option.
Yeah, that actually could be an option. Yeah. All right.
I don't know. They lost me at the monologue and just never won me back.
There are some highlights in there for me, some performances, especially by Jane, that I really enjoyed in the show.
Oh, really, Gary? What are your best bits?
Oh, my best bits are, I have 2.
Ooh.
One is
bold.
I know. One is the David Susskind show. I thought that was phenomenal. Hands down, that was my number 1. My number 2 was, and it's not because of Bill, but it was Bill's Weekend Update bit with John's impression of Richard Dreyfuss.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill was fun in that too. You're right. Like Bill's part of it also was, you know, the Woody Allen references and then the noogies with Jane. So he was very fun.
Yeah. Those were my best bits. How about you? What are your best bits?
It was tough. David Susskind show is all I could do. Jane is great. Bill's very good. I mean, it was just great to see just the cast for once. It was really fun. That's it.
Yeah. This was an episode that I felt Jane and Bill were my cast member all-stars. I think they both had really strong shows in everything they were in. But that's it. You don't have to think about this episode ever again, Brad.
Thank God.
You're welcome.
I was really hoping you liked it because I was like, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. And like, I am just not.
I definitely liked it more than you did. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
Well, we can't help that you hate Richard Dreyfuss for some reason.
Oh.
Well, next week, we're going to be talking about season 3, episode 20, the season finale.
Bring it home, Buck.
Yeah. Host Buck Henry and musical guest Sun Ra. Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
The Not Ready for Primetime podcast is a 2 Pints Productions production. Produced and edited by Brad and Gary. Thought about by Brad and Gary. Please rate and review. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
I was Richard Dreyfuss. I was in Jaws.